What if I told you there's a place in America where you could legally commit murder and walk free? Or that it's sitting on top of a supervolcano so massive that if it erupts, it would bury most of the continental United States in ash? How about the fact that this place has a spot where the ground is so hot it can boil you alive and it looks just like a normal swimming hole from the surface? This place looks like wide open ranches and cowboy hats from a distance. But get a little closer, and you realize this state is hiding some of the most terrifying geography on the planet. We're breaking down 50 facts about Wyoming that sound completely fake, but absolutely aren't. Fact 50. The most isolated state in America. Wyoming is the least populated state in the entire United States. Not by a little, by a lot. With roughly 580,000 people spread across nearly 98,000 square miles, it has fewer residents than Washington, D.C. That works out to about 6 people per square mile. In some counties, it's closer to 1. You can drive for 2 hours in Wyoming and genuinely not see another human being. For context, New Jersey packs more than 1 to 200 people into the same space. Wyoming is essentially a wilderness with a state government attached to it. Fact 49. Half the state isn't even Wyoming's. Here's something that sounds insane. The federal government owns roughly 48% of Wyoming's land. That means nearly half the state doesn't belong to Wyoming. It belongs to Washington. National parks, national forests, Bureau of Land Management land, military ranges. The state has limited say over what happens on that land. For comparison, the feds own about 4% of land in the eastern United States. Out here, the government is effectively Wyoming's biggest landlord and it doesn't pay rent. Fact 48. The wind that never stops. Cheyenne, Wyoming's state capital, is one of the windiest cities in the entire United States. Average wind speeds hit around 12 mph year-round, but gusts regularly crack 60 mph and can top 80 mph during storms. Roads in Wyoming have been closed simply because the wind made it physically impossible to drive. The state has issued travel bans not because of snow, but because wind alone was strong enough to flip semi-trucks. There are days where it is legitimately dangerous to stand outside. And this is the capital city. Fact 47. The supervolcano sitting under Yellowstone. Let's just get this one on the table early. Yellowstone National Park sits directly on top of one of the largest supervolcanoes in the world. The caldera, the collapsed crater of the volcano, is roughly 34 miles wide and 45 miles long. The magma chamber beneath it contains enough molten rock to fill the Grand Canyon more than 11 times over. The last 3 major eruptions, 2.1 million, 1.3 million, and 640,000 years ago, each blanketed much of North America in ash. Scientists estimate a full-scale eruption today would deposit feet of ash across the Midwest and potentially trigger a volcanic winter affecting the entire planet. We'll come back to this. Fact 46. The ground that moves every day. Yellowstone doesn't just sit there quietly. The park experiences between 1,000 and 3,000 earthquakes every single year. Most are tiny, undetectable without instruments. But Yellowstone has had earthquake swarms of hundreds of tremors in just a few days. In 2017, a swarm produced more than 2,400 earthquakes over 3 months. The ground in parts of the park literally rises and falls by inches every year as magma shifts below the surface. Yellowstone isn't a dormant volcano. It's an active one. It's just between eruptions. Fact 45. The hot springs that will cook you alive. Yellowstone's hydrothermal features are insane, and not in a good way. The park contains more than 10,000 geothermal features, more than anywhere else on Earth. Its hot springs reach temperatures above 250 F. The water is also highly acidic or alkaline, depending on the pool. People and animals that have fallen in haven't just drowned. The superheated water has caused severe burns within seconds. At least 22 people have died in Yellowstone's thermal features since 1890. In 2016, a man wandered off the boardwalk in the Norris Geyser Basin and fell into a hot spring. Within a day, searchers found almost nothing. The water had dissolved most of him. Fact 44. The Grand Prismatic Spring is larger than a football field. The Grand Prismatic Spring in Yellowstone is the largest hot spring in the United States and the 3rd largest in the world. It stretches about 370 feet across bigger than a football field and sits at around 160 F at its center. The vivid rings of orange, yellow, and red around the edge aren't paint or lighting tricks. They're mats of heat-adapted bacteria called thermophiles that live in temperatures that would kill virtually any other organism on Earth. The spring produces so much steam that on cold days it's nearly impossible to see from the boardwalk. You have to see it from above to understand the scale. Fact 43. Old Faithful is becoming less faithful. Old Faithful is probably the most famous geyser on Earth. But here's what most tourists don't know. Its intervals are getting longer. In the 1950s, Old Faithful erupted roughly every 60 minutes. Today, the average interval is closer to 90 minutes. Scientists believe this is connected to major earthquakes. The 1959 Hebgen Lake quake and the 1983 Bora Peak quake both measurably changed the geyser's timing. The ground beneath Yellowstone is literally being rearranged in real time, and Old Faithful is registering every shift. It's still spectacular, just less punctual than advertised. Fact 42. The legal loophole for getting away with murder. This one sounds like it came from a legal thriller. There is a roughly 50 square mile zone within Yellowstone National Park that technically sits in Idaho, but is part of the Federal Judicial District of Wyoming. Because of the Sixth Amendment's requirement that a jury be drawn from both the state and district where a crime occurred, and because essentially nobody lives in that Idaho sliver of Yellowstone, you theoretically could not assemble a valid jury there. Law professor Brian Kahl laid this out in a 2005 paper. Congress has never fixed it. The zone has no fence, no sign. It just exists, a tiny legal no man's land inside America's most famous national park. Fact 41. The state with the highest per capita energy production on Earth. Wyoming isn't just the biggest energy-producing state in America. It's one of the biggest energy-producing regions anywhere on the planet. The state produces more coal than any other state by a massive margin at one point, accounting for roughly 40% of all U.S. coal production. It's also a top producer of natural gas, uranium, and oil. Wyoming produces so much energy that if it were a country, it would rank among the top energy exporters in the world. The state has about 580,000 people. It powers hundreds of millions. The math on that is genuinely absurd. Fact 40. The Continental Divide splits Wyoming in half. The Continental Divide runs directly through Wyoming. But here's the wild part. Wyoming is also home to the Great Divide Basin, a section where the divide actually splits into two branches, loops around, and rejoins. Any rain or snow that falls inside that loop goes nowhere. It doesn't drain to the Pacific. It doesn't drain to the Atlantic. It just sits in the basin and slowly evaporates. It's a hydrological dead zone in the middle of the American West, about 4,000 square miles of land from which water has no escape. There are very few places on Earth where this happens. Fact 39. The deepest alpine lake in North America. Fremont Lake in western Wyoming plunges to a depth of about 600 feet, making it one of the deepest alpine lakes in North America. The lake sits at over 7,000 feet in elevation, surrounded by the Wind River Range. During the Cold War, the U.S. Navy actually conducted submarine sonar research here, using the lake's extreme depth and clarity for testing. Yes, the Navy, in landlocked Wyoming, in the mountains. Because the depth and acoustic properties were a closer analog to ocean conditions than most actual coastal testing sites. Strange doesn't begin to cover it. Fact 38. Wyoming's glaciers are vanishing. The Wind River Range contains the largest concentration of glaciers in the American Rockies, but they're disappearing at an alarming rate. Since 1850, the glaciers of the Wind Rivers have lost more than 40% of their mass. Fremont Glacier, one of the most studied in the U.S., has retreated by nearly a mile in that time. These glaciers feed rivers across a huge portion of the American West. When they go, the downstream effects on water supply for agriculture, cities, and ecosystems could be catastrophic. Wyoming's mountains are essentially a water tower for the West, and the tower is leaking. Fact 37. The earthquake that created a new lake overnight. On August 17, 1959, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck just outside Yellowstone near Hebgen Lake, Montana. The quake was so powerful it caused a mountainside to collapse into the Madison River, burying 28 campers alive and blocking the river with 80 million tons of debris. Within hours, a brand new lake had formed behind the natural dam. That lake, Earthquake Lake, still exists today. The tops of trees from the drowned forest still poke above the waterline. You can pull off the highway and see them. The whole thing happened in less than a minute. Fact 36. The hottest geyser, water on Earth. The Steamboat Geyser in Yellowstone's Norris Geyser Basin is the tallest active geyser in the world. When it erupts, which it can do unpredictably, Sometimes, after years of silence, it shoots water more than 300 feet into the air. That's nearly twice the height of Old Faithful. Norris is also the hottest geyser basin in Yellowstone, with some thermal features registering water temperatures above 459 degrees Fahrenheit below the surface. The water only stays liquid because of the immense pressure underground. At the surface, it flashes instantly to steam. Norris is the closest you can get to understanding what the inside of this volcano actually feels like. Fact 35. The bison that carry a disease that can wipe out cattle. Yellowstone's bison herd is the largest wild herd in the United States, with around 5,000 animals. But a significant portion of the herd carries brucellosis, a bacterial disease that can cause pregnant cattle to miscarry. This has created a decades-long conflict at Yellowstone's borders. When bison wander outside the park boundaries, which they frequently do, ranchers and the state of Montana have pushed for them to be hazed, captured, or killed to protect livestock. Thousands of bison have been slaughtered over the years to manage the boundary. It's one of the most controversial wildlife management issues in the United States, playing out year after year along Wyoming's northern border. Fact 34. The largest hot spring in the world is in Wyoming. While the Grand Prismatic takes the title for the U.S. Thermopolis, Wyoming hosts what is certified as the world's largest mineral hot spring. The Big Spring at Hot Springs State Park discharges roughly 2.6 million gallons of water every 24 hours at a constant temperature of about 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Native American tribes considered the site sacred, and by treaty, the land was given to the U.S. government on the condition that the waters remain free for the public to use. To this day, you can bathe in the hot spring waters for free. It's one of the only places in Wyoming or anywhere where a federal treaty actually gave something to ordinary people permanently. Fact 33. The mountains that are still growing. The Teton Range is geologically young by mountain standards, only about 9 to 13 million years old, compared to the ancient Appalachians at around 480 million. But here's what makes them unusual: they're still rising. The Teton Fault is actively extending, pushing the mountains upward at a rate of about 1 foot every 300 to 400 years. Meanwhile, Jackson Hole on the other side is sinking. The dramatic, near-vertical profile of the Teton's no foothills, just a sheer wall rising 7,000 feet from the valley floor, is a direct result of this ongoing geological violence. These mountains are not finished. Fact 32. The Snake River starts in Wyoming. The Snake River, one of the longest rivers in the American West at about 1,078 miles, begins as a tiny trickle in the mountains of Yellowstone. From there, it drops south through Jackson Hole and then carves its way across Idaho, forming Hell's Canyon, the deepest river gorge in North America at nearly 8,000 feet deep, before eventually joining the Columbia River and reaching the Pacific Ocean. The entire journey starts in Wyoming. A single raindrop landing in Yellowstone's backcountry could end up in the Pacific Ocean 1,000 miles away. Fact 31. Devil's Tower is even weirder than it looks. Devil's Tower in northeastern Wyoming rises 867 feet above the surrounding landscape in a near-perfect column of hexagonal rock. It was the first U.S. national monument declared by Teddy Roosevelt in 1906. But what exactly formed it is still debated. The leading theory is that it's the solidified core of an ancient volcano. The molten rock cooled, contracted, and cracked into those distinctive columns, while the softer surrounding rock eroded away over millions of years. It's sacred to more than 20 Native American tribes who call it by names that predate any European contact. Every June, the National Park Service asks climbers to voluntarily avoid the tower out of respect for indigenous ceremonies. About a quarter of climbers comply. Fact 30. Wyoming has more pronghorn than people. Pronghorn antelope are the fastest land animal in the Western Hemisphere, capable of sustaining speeds of 55 mph. Wyoming has approximately 600,000 of them. That's more pronghorn than there are people in the entire state. They're the second fastest land animal on Earth behind the cheetah. But unlike cheetahs, they can maintain top speed for miles, an adaptation believed to have evolved to outrun North American cheetahs and lions that went extinct around 12,000 years ago. Wyoming's pronghorn are still running from predators that no longer exist. They just haven't stopped. Fact 29. The Sagebrush Sea. More than half of Wyoming, roughly 50 million acres, is covered in sagebrush. It's the dominant ecosystem of the state, stretching across vast basins in a flat, gray-green expanse that can look featureless at highway speed. But the sagebrush steppe is one of the most ecologically complex, and threatened habitats in North America. It supports over 350 species of wildlife, including sage grouse, pronghorn, and mule deer. It's also disappearing lost to energy development, agriculture, and invasive cheatgrass at a rate that has alarmed conservationists for decades. Most people drive through it without a second look. They're crossing one of America's most endangered landscapes. Fact 28, the acid pools of Yellowstone. Not all of Yellowstone's hydrothermal features are alkaline hot springs. Some are fumaroles and mud pots, essentially vents of superheated steam and sulfur gas. The most acidic pools in the park have a pH approaching 0. That is the acidity of battery acid. The Norris Geyser Basin contains pools acidic enough to dissolve metal objects in hours. These features are created when sulfur compounds from deep in the volcanic system mix with surface water. The resulting liquid is one of the most corrosive substances found naturally on Earth, and it's sitting there, just off the boardwalk, behind a wooden fence. Fact 27, Wyoming has the highest mean elevation of any state. When you average out every point in Wyoming, every valley, basin, and mountain peak, the state's mean elevation is approximately 6,700 feet above sea level. That's higher than Colorado's mean elevation and higher than any other state. Even the lowest point in Wyoming, in the northeast corner, near the Belle Fourche River, sits at 3,999 feet higher than many mountain peaks in the eastern United States. The air is thinner statewide. New visitors feel it immediately. Altitude sickness is a real risk for people who underestimate how high they actually are. Fact 26, the Kilpecker Sand Dunes. In the middle of Wyoming, hundreds of miles from any ocean, there are active sand dunes stretching more than 100 miles. The Kilpecker Dunes in Sweetwater County are the largest active sand dune system in the United States. Some dunes rise 150 feet high. They're not static, they migrate slowly with the wind, burying and uncovering things in their path. The dunes exist because ancient lake beds dried up after the last ice age, leaving behind massive deposits of fine sediment that Wyoming's relentless wind has been sculpting ever since. It looks like a scene from North Africa. It's in Wyoming. Fact 25, the supervolcano's real eruption timeline. Let's come back to Yellowstone. Scientists have identified 3 major eruption cycles: 2.1 million years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and 640,000 years ago. The intervals between those eruptions are roughly 700,000 years and 660,000 years. We are now approximately 640,000 years past the last one. On the rough cycle, we're theoretically due. Scientists are quick to say the volcano does not operate on a strict schedule and a major eruption is not imminent by any definition. But what they also acknowledge is this: if Yellowstone erupted at the scale of its previous events, the ashfall alone would collapse roofs across the Midwest within hours, render much of the Great Plains topsoil unusable for years, and potentially cool global temperatures enough to trigger crop failures worldwide. It is, by geological definition, a planet-altering event. Fact 24, the boiling river where people actually swim. There's a stretch of the Gardner River just north of Mammoth Hot Springs where a scalding hydrothermal channel flows into the cold river. The two streams mix at the edge, creating a narrow zone of water that is, depending on where you stand, anywhere from perfectly warm to dangerously hot. For decades, this spot was a popular, if unofficial, swimming hole. The National Park Service closed it periodically and eventually shut it to swimming entirely. The problem isn't just comfort. The exact mix point shifts constantly with river flow, and people have stepped from warm bath to scalding in a single stride. The water can swing 80 degrees in the space of a foot. Fact 23, the Wind River Canyon. In central Wyoming, the Wind River cuts through a 2,500-foot deep canyon, carved through some of the oldest exposed rock in North America. The canyon walls expose rock layers up to 2.9 billion years old, about 2/3 of Earth's total age. At the bottom of the canyon, the river changes its name. On the south side of the canyon, it's called the Wind River. On the north side of the exact same river, it becomes the Bighorn River. The name change happens at a rapid called the Wetting of the Waters. Same water, same channel, 2 different names, because early settlers couldn't agree and nobody ever fixed it. Fact 22, Wyoming produces uranium. Wyoming is the largest uranium-producing state in the United States. The Powder River Basin and the Gas Hills District hold some of the most significant uranium deposits in the Western Hemisphere. During the Cold War, Wyoming uranium fueled much of America's nuclear weapons program. Today, In situ recovery mining, where water is injected underground to dissolve uranium and pump it back to the surface, continues in the state. Wyoming is simultaneously producing the fuel for clean nuclear energy and sitting on top of a literal supervolcano. The geological extremes here are unreal. Fact 21, the Jackson Hole elk herd. Every winter, roughly 11,000 elk migrate down from the surrounding mountains and gather on the National Elk Refuge just outside Jackson Hole. It is one of the largest elk herds in North America and one of the greatest wildlife spectacles in the United States. The herd is so large that the local elk antlers, shed naturally each spring, are collected by Boy Scouts and auctioned off annually. Tons of antlers literally by weight are sold each year. The money funds wildlife programs. Elk antlers from Wyoming have been shipped as far as Asia, where they're used in traditional medicine. The whole ecosystem around this valley is operating at a scale that most Americans have no idea exists. Fact 20, the grizzly bears are back. Grizzly bears were functionally eliminated from the greater Yellowstone ecosystem by the early 20th century through hunting and habitat loss. A federal recovery program launched in the 1970s brought them back. Today, the greater Yellowstone grizzly population has climbed from fewer than 150 animals in the 1970s to an estimated 700 to 1,000. That success story is genuinely impressive. It's also created a new reality. Grizzly encounters are increasing as bears expand their range beyond the park. In recent years, grizzlies have been documented in areas of Wyoming where they hadn't been seen in decades. They're moving back into places where people have lived without them for generations. Fact 19, Death Canyon in Grand Teton. Grand Teton National Park has a canyon with a name that earns its reputation. Death Canyon got its name in 1899 when a survey party entered and one member never came out. Today, it's a popular backcountry route and it's genuinely dangerous. The canyon is prone to rockfall. Its creek crossings can run dangerously high with snowmelt, and afternoon thunderstorms at elevation can be severe and sudden. The Tetons in general have some of the most unpredictable weather in the Rockies. Storms can move in from clear skies in under 30 minutes. Several hikers and climbers have died in these mountains, underestimating exactly that. Fact 18, the first federal irrigation project in the United States. The Shoshone Project, completed in 1904 near Cody, Wyoming, was the very first project built under the Federal Reclamation Act, the law that created what is now the Bureau of Reclamation, and launched the federal government's era of transforming the American West through water infrastructure. The Buffalo Bill Dam, which holds back the Shoshone River in a spectacular narrow canyon, was when completed in 1910 the tallest dam in the world at 325 feet. Wyoming's geography literally forced American engineering to invent itself. Fact 17, Wyoming has almost no natural trees. Outside of mountain ranges, Wyoming's basins are almost entirely treeless. The high desert plateaus, the Powder River Basin, the Big Horn Basin, vast landscapes of grass and sage with virtually no natural forest cover. Trees require moisture Wyoming's lowlands simply don't get. The mean annual precipitation across much of the state is less than 10 inches drier than many parts of the Sahara's fringe regions. The mountain ranges are forested precisely because they intercept moisture from storm systems passing overhead. Everything between the mountains is effectively a cold desert. Fact 16, the Yellowstone Lake thermal vents. Yellowstone Lake sits in the caldera of the supervolcano. The lake is, on the surface, a normal alpine lake, cold, clear, and beautiful. But the floor of the lake is geothermally active. There are hydrothermal vents on the lakebed that superheat the water directly above them. Enormous bulges called hydrothermal explosion craters scar the bottom. One of these, the Mary Bay crater, is about a mile across and was created when superheated water underground flashed instantly to steam, blowing a hole in the lakebed. This kind of hydrothermal explosion can happen with no warning and no seismic precursor. Smaller versions have happened in Yellowstone's history within the last few thousand years. The last one large enough to leave a significant crater happened about 13,000 years ago. Fact 15. Wyoming is the birthplace of women's suffrage in America. In 1869, the Wyoming Territory became the first government in the United States and one of the first in the world to grant women the right to vote. This was 51 years before the 19th Amendment passed nationally. Wyoming also appointed the first female jury in American history and the first female justice of the peace. When Wyoming applied for statehood in 1890 and Congress pushed back on the women's suffrage provision, Wyoming's legislators reportedly responded, "We will remain out of the Union 100 years rather than come in without women." Congress backed down, Wyoming entered the Union with full female suffrage intact. Fact 14, the Togwotee Pass and the Two-Ocean Divide. Near Togwotee Pass in the northern part of the state, there's a spot called Two-Ocean Pass where a single stream splits into two forks. One fork eventually reaches the Pacific Ocean through the Snake and Columbia rivers. The other fork drains into the Atlantic via the Yellowstone, Missouri, and Mississippi rivers. A fish, specifically a cutthroat trout, could theoretically migrate from one ocean's watershed to the other through this pass. This is the only place on Earth where a fish can make that crossing via connected waterways. Lewis and Clark noted it. Naturalists have confirmed it. It sounds like something from a myth. Fact 13. The wolf reintroduction that changed everything. In 1995 and 1996, gray wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone after being absent for 70 years. 41 wolves were brought from Canada and released. Today, the population in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem numbers around 100 wolves, and what they've done to the ecosystem is extraordinary. Elk, which had overgrazed riverbanks and valleys, now avoid open areas where wolves hunt. That behavioral shift allowed willows and aspens to regrow along riverbanks. Those plants stabilized stream banks, which changed river flow. Beavers returned. Songbirds returned. The physical landscape of Yellowstone has been measurably altered by the presence of predators. Scientists call it a trophic cascade. Wolves changed the rivers. That is not an exaggeration. Fact 12. The Yellowstone caldera is visible from space. The Yellowstone caldera is so enormous that it cannot be appreciated at ground level. You can drive across it without realizing you're inside it. From above, the collapsed depression, roughly 34 by 45 miles, is clearly visible in satellite imagery and from orbit. The outer rim of the caldera forms much of the highland terrain surrounding the geyser basins. When astronauts have described looking down at Yellowstone from the International Space Station, several have noted that the scale of the volcanic feature is one of the most striking geological formations visible from space over North America. You need to leave the planet to truly understand what Wyoming is sitting on. Fact 11, the mysterious trona deposits. Beneath the surface of southwestern Wyoming lies the largest known deposit of trona, a mineral used to make soda ash in the world. The Green River Basin contains roughly 47% of the entire world's known trona reserves. Trona is used to make glass, detergents, paper, and a massive range of industrial products. Wyoming's underground trona deposits supply a significant portion of global soda ash demand. The mines in this region operate hundreds of feet underground through tunnels that stretch for miles. One of the most economically important minerals in global manufacturing is being extracted from beneath Wyoming's empty-looking desert basins, and almost no one knows it's there. Fact 10, Wyoming's avalanche country. Wyoming's mountain ranges, the Tetons, the Wind Rivers, the Bighorns, the Absarokas are some of the most avalanche-prone terrain in the United States. The combination of high snowpack, extreme wind loading, and steep terrain creates near-constant avalanche conditions throughout the winter months. The state sees dozens of major avalanches each year. In some years, highways and mountain passes are buried by slides that take days to clear. Grand Teton National Park's backcountry sees multiple avalanche fatalities most winters. The scale of some of these slides, running thousands of vertical feet, is hard to comprehend until you see the debris field at the bottom, which can be the size of a city block and 30 feet deep. Fact 9, the Bighorn Medicine Wheel. High in the Bighorn Mountains, at an elevation of nearly 10,000 feet, there's a stone structure built by Native Americans roughly 800 years ago. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel is a circle of stones 80 feet in diameter with 28 spokes radiating from a central cairn. Archaeoastronomers have found that the wheel aligns with the rising and setting positions of the sun at the summer solstice, as well as with certain bright stars. It was almost certainly used as an astronomical calendar. The site is still sacred to dozens of Native American tribes today. It sits in an area that would have been extraordinarily difficult to reach even in summer, which means whoever built it made intentional, difficult journeys to a specific place they understood to be cosmologically significant. Fact 8, the Norris Geyser Basin ground temperature. The ground in Norris Geyser Basin is so geothermally hot that in some spots, the soil temperature just a few inches down is close to boiling. In certain areas, if you stepped off the boardwalk and pushed a stick into the ground, it would come back steaming. The thin crust over some thermal features is only a few inches thick. Below it is superheated water, steam, or acidic mud. Yellowstone has documented cases where animals, bison and elk, have broken through thin thermal crust and been scalded or killed. Rangers respond to these incidents regularly. The park looks stable. In places, it is barely a shell. Fact 7. Wyoming's deadliest geography. The mountains in winter. Wyoming's mountain terrain in winter is some of the most genuinely deadly in the lower 48 states. The Tetons regularly see temperatures dropping below -30°F, with wind chills pushing past -60°F. Whiteout conditions can descend in minutes. Snowpack in the backcountry can exceed 20 feet in depth. Exposure, avalanche, and disorientation kill people every single winter in Wyoming's mountains. Unlike many dangerous places that carry obvious visual warnings, Wyoming's winter landscape is strikingly beautiful right up until it becomes lethal. The mountains look exactly the same whether the conditions are survivable or not. Fact 6. The Yellowstone River runs without a single dam. The Yellowstone River is the longest undammed river in the contiguous United States. From its headwaters in Yellowstone National Park to its confluence with the Missouri River in North Dakota, it runs more than 670 miles without a single dam on its main channel. It is the last major river in the lower 48 that still runs essentially as it did before European settlement. That makes it extraordinarily ecologically valuable. Wild trout, migratory birds, and aquatic species depend on its free-flowing character. It also makes it genuinely dangerous in spring when snowmelt sends it surging over its banks with a force that has wrecked bridges, flooded towns, and reshaped its own floodplain multiple times within living memory. Fact 5. The thermal features are moving. Scientists have documented that Yellowstone's thermal features are not static. Hydrothermal activity has been shifting northward within the park over geological time as the North American plate slowly moves over the hotspot below. This is the same process that created a chain of ancient calderas stretching from Nevada to Wyoming. The hotspot doesn't move, but the continent above it does, at about an inch per year. The volcanic activity underneath Wyoming today will eventually be under a different state. In a few million years, the hotspot will be roughly where eastern Montana or the Dakotas are now. The supervolcano is on the move, very, very slowly. Fact 4. The Gros Ventre Slide. On June 23, 1925, one of the largest landslides in North American history let loose on the slopes of Sheep Mountain in western Wyoming. An estimated 50 million cubic yards of rock and debris, about 38 million tons of material slid down the mountain in under a minute, burying the Gros Ventre River and creating a natural dam 225 feet high. A lake formed almost overnight. 2 years later, the natural dam partially failed, sending a wall of water through the downstream valley and destroying the town of Kelly, Wyoming. 6 people were killed. The landslide scar on Sheep Mountain is still clearly visible nearly a century later, one of the largest and most visible geological scars in the American West. Fact 3. The entire state is a seismic time bomb. Most people think of Wyoming's seismic risk in terms of Yellowstone, but the entire state sits within a geologically active zone. The Teton Fault, which runs along the base of the Teton Range, is capable of producing earthquakes in the magnitude 7.5 range, roughly equivalent to the 1959 Hebgen Lake quake that created Earthquake Lake overnight. Such a quake today could cause significant damage in Jackson Hole, one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country. The fault is not dormant. It last produced a major surface rupture roughly 4,500 to 7,000 years ago. By geological standards, that was yesterday. Fact 2. The scale of a Yellowstone eruption. If Yellowstone erupts at the scale of its previous super eruptions, here's what the models show. Within 2 days, ash would blanket most of the western United States under several feet of material. Roads would be impassable. Power grids would fail under the weight. Within a week, ash reaching the upper atmosphere would begin reflecting sunlight, dropping global temperatures by several degrees enough to damage global agriculture for years. The 2,100 cubic mile Huckleberry Ridge eruption 2.1 million years ago deposited ash as far as the Gulf of Mexico. Scientists don't say this will happen soon. They also don't say the system is winding down. What they say is that Yellowstone has erupted before, spectacularly, and the forces that made it erupt haven't gone anywhere. Fact 1. Wyoming may be the most geologically dangerous place in America. Take everything in this video together: a supervolcano capable of a planet-altering eruption, one of the most seismically active regions in the lower 48, thermal features that can dissolve a human body in hours, landslides that bury towns overnight, earthquakes that create lakes in minutes, the fastest land animals in the hemisphere running from predators that no longer exist, wolves that literally change rivers, a legal dead zone where you could theoretically walk free after a crime, glaciers vanishing, taking water supplies from millions with them, And sitting under all of it, a magma chamber the size of a small country, which has erupted 3 times in the last 2 million years and is, geologically speaking, overdue. Wyoming looks empty. It looks quiet. It looks like wide open nothing from a highway at 80 miles per hour. But get below the surface literally, and it's one of the most violent, unstable, extraordinary places on the planet.